They call it the news. It's meant to inform you. But do you ever really feel informed? Here, we look for the signal in all that static. I'm Caesar, and welcome to Strange Frequency. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, coffee drinkers and night owls. I'm your host, Caesar, looking a little different tonight. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the little too much pomade in the hair. Maybe it's that my mug has got a little bit too much in it, or it could just be a new set location. For the last couple of episodes of Strange Frequency Season 1, they'll look a little different than what you're used to. We're actually moving into a new location, something that will be more permanent and have more permanent lighting, etc. once we get back. Let me know in the comments if you like this setup or you prefer the old black background. Anyway, do you ever notice everything nowadays feels staged? So tonight, we're starting with something subtle, but once you see it, it becomes difficult to ignore. Something about the world right now just feels off. A little chaotic, a little broken, but certainly staged. People, just regular average people, don't just speak anymore. They present themselves. They don't just live, they document, they frame, they deliver moments as if someone's watching. Even ordinary behavior begins to feel intentional, like there's an audience just outside a frame. And hell, if you're a big TikToker or Instagram star, maybe it is. Maybe you do have an audience. But here's what we know. Research into online behavior shows that people are no longer simply expressing themselves. They are constructing identities in real time, adjusting tone, appearance, and message based on the perceived audience response. There is a term for this, performative authenticity. Something that appears genuine on the surface, but is shaped, refined, and presented with truth and awareness. Not necessarily fake, but not entirely unfiltered either. These aren't people doing a show. These are people presenting real life to you, or how they would have you believe it's real life. Authenticity itself has shifted. It is no longer just something you are, it's something that you demonstrate. Through lighting, tone, pacing, vulnerability, timing, people signal relatability. Even moments that feel spontaneous are often selected for many others that were not shown. The result is a version of reality that feels real, but is still very much curated. And the system reinforces this behavior. Platforms do not reward truth, they reward engagement. They amplify what keeps attention, what generates reaction, and what holds the viewer in place. Over time, behavior adapts to that incentive structure. We go back, patterns and incentives. People begin shaping themselves not around reality, but around the response. The question quietly shifts from, is this real? To, does this work? Now let's step back and take a look at the larger pattern. If everyone is adjusting, presenting, and refining themselves for an unseen audience, then what we are seeing is no longer pure expression. It is performance layered over reality. And when authenticity can be constructed, perception can then be guided. That uneasy feeling people have, that sense that something isn't quite right, may not be paranoia at all. It may be recognition. People can sense the difference between something that simply exists and something that is being presented. Not always consciously, but instinctively, I think. And right now, much of what feels a digital environment feels less like lived experience and more like a continuous performance. That doesn't mean nothing digital is real. It means reality is being filtered, shaped, and delivered through systems that reward perception over substance. And in a world like that, recognizing the difference between signal, and performance becomes essential. That's what we know right now, and that's our signal so far. It's almost like we live in an algorithmic reality, wouldn't you say? If everything feels staged, there's a reason for that. Because you're not just watching the world, but you're watching a version of it. A version that's been selected, filtered, and delivered to you. Not randomly, not neutrally, but very much intentionally. Here's what we know. Most people no longer consume information the same way they used to. They don't search for it. It's delivered to them through feeds, recommendations, and algorithms. And those systems are not designed to show you everything. They're designed to show you what you're most likely to engage with. Over time, those systems learn what you click, what you watch, what you pause, and slowly they begin to adjust to your environment. And you see it all the time. You don't even have to click on it. You don't have to like it. You can hit the X on it that you don't want to see it. And all of a sudden, you're being bombarded by stuff that you don't want to see because you took the time to do anything with it. Creepy as shit, I know. And slowly, once it's beginning to adjust to your environment, not the physical world, the informational one, what you see becomes tailored. So two of us, can open the same app up and see completely different realities, different headlines, different opinions, different tones. Not because reality changed, just because the filter did. Now think about that for a second. If your perception of the world is shaped by what you're shown, and what you're shown is shaped by what you engage with, then over time, your reality just becomes a feedback loop. Does that feel topical and relevant? You hear about this on X all the time, people in their echo chambers. Very much real. You don't observe the system, you train it. And for the creepiest part, it then trains you. So when something feels off, when everything feels slightly staged, it might not just be performance, but it might be selection. A version of reality optimized for attention. And once you see that, you start to realize something. You're not just watching the world, you're watching a feed. And that's the signal for algorithmic reality. We'll close tonight with something that sounds like a theory at first, but is increasingly grounded in reality. There's a growing idea that parts of the internet are no longer entirely human, not because people disappeared, but because something else was introduced, something faster, something very scalable, and something that doesn't need to think to produce. Here's what we know. Artificial intelligence can now generate massive amounts of content. Entire articles can be written in seconds, images can be created instantly, videos are beginning to follow the same pattern almost instantly. And this isn't happening slowly, it's happening at large scale. Thousands of pieces of content produced in the time it would take a person to write one. So thousands versus one. As production becomes easier, volume increases. And when volume increases, the environment changes. The internet was once built on human input, human ideas, human experience. But now, some of that input is synthetic, generated, not lived, and in many cases, indistinguishable. At the same time, automated traffic is increasing. Bots interacting with content, bots scraping content, bots amplifying content, clicks, views, engagement signals. Have you ever argued with someone that has no following? They just seem to try and inflame you no matter what it takes. There's a good chance that was probably a bot. I mean, yeah, you could have ran into an asshole, but the bots are far more increasingly irritable, I would say, or programmed to be anyway. And these clicks and engagements, I mean, they're not always coming from people. And when systems begin interacting with systems, the loop accelerates. Now, connect that back to everything else we've discussed. If content can be generated at mass scale and algorithms decide what gets seen, and people are already adjusting behavior inside those systems, then the environment itself begins to shift, not collapse, but transform into something different, something less human, something optimized. So maybe the question isn't, is the internet real? Maybe the better question is, how much of it is still human? And if that percentage continues to shrink, what does that do to perception? What does that do to trust? What does that do to reality when most of what you see is generated, filtered, and delivered? Because in a space like that, the signal becomes harder to find, but also way more valuable. And that's what we do at Strange Frequency. We find the signal. And that concludes tonight's broadcast. As always, links to the articles used will be in the description below. And if you have anything strange or unexplained, put it in the comments. Please like and subscribe and share this with your friends. Until next time, we'll keep listening for the signal.